Dan, I understand you were in Alpha and Bravo companies
Right.
when you were in Vietnam?
I was in Alpha Company first tanks while I was in Vietnam the second time, and I was in Bravo Company third tanks when I was there the first time.
Okay. And when were you in country?
I was in country in 65 and 66 the first time, and then I was back there in 67 and 68.
Okay. So you did 2 tours in country?
Right,
And both tours were with tanks?
right.
Okay. Any particular stories or incidents that you'd like to share with us today?
Gosh, let me see. I don't know. There was one in particular there where we call the impact area, where it's going out where the NVA were and the Viet Cong were at. And I always felt safer out there than I did in the rear with the gear where a lot of people were at. And anyway, they'd want us to stick around in the rear when we came back there to get work done on our tanks or something, either pick up ammunition or pick up food or something, you know, sea rations. And then we were always ready to go back to what we referred to the impact area, which was the hot area, you know.
Okay. And where was this in country? Was this down south or?
It was down south of Marble Mountain.
Okay.
It was in the Phung Ho area and all the way down to Hoi An, which is down where the Korean rocks were at.
Okay.
They came in there afterwards though, but we operated in that area down there.
And were you on what tanks were you on?
I was on Bravo 1-2 at that time. I was a heavy section leader.
Okay.
And we usually operated with 2 tanks out there whenever we went out. We supported 1st Battalion, 9th Marines there. They were at Marble Mountain,
Okay.
same place where we were at.
And any operations that you remember by name?
There was one there that was Moonlight, one of the operations there, and it seemed like they'd have operation. They'd take and run the team's tanks out, and they'd have a big sweep of the area there. And it seemed like a lot of times they'd pick up the same people, you know, in the same area, and they'd send them back for interrogation, and then they'd turn them loose. When they'd run another sweep in the same area, they would do the same thing. And
Right.
we worked with a Captain Henry, and we also had a captain from 1-9 that was from Australia. And he was the one that, I don't know whether I should say this or not, but he carried a stringer of ears.
Wow.
And because the Vietnamese believe if you're missing some part of your body, you don't go to a happy hunting ground. And whenever you'd see him with his infantry company, he'd have that string of ears with him, you know, and anytime they'd kill one of them, he'd cut the ear off and put it on that stringer.
Wow.
And anyway, they had a bounty out for the tanks, the 2 tanks that we were supporting the infantry with, and they also had a bounty out on Captain Henry at that time. And they found, the infantry found him down in the village when we were making sweeps there. And they were going to pay so much for each tank and each crew and company commander, platoon leaders, and people like that.
Right. And this was, now were these NVA or VC?
It was NVA and VC.
Both, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And in fact, we killed some NVA down there. We killed one person that was, he's like a special forces, I guess, that was NVA there down in that Hoi An area.
Okay.
And anyway, I don't know, I know there was a quarrel going on between Captain Henry and some officer back in his battalion. And anyway, when we killed a lot of the NVA, he said that you load these bodies up, we're going to throw them on the back of your armor plate, and we want you to take them back up to the battalion headquarters. So anyway, we hauled them in there. You know, it's just like whenever you send planes out, you just send them out two at a time.
Mhm.
Well, they sent the tanks in like that. And he said, when you unload them, those keels, said you come on back out here. So that's what we did.
Right.
And we were close to the ocean, and we used the ocean a lot of times as our barrier. We'd go out to the ocean, go down, and we knew the area where we'd have to cut back in to go back into the infantry company that we were supporting there.
Did you ever hit any mines when you were in country?
Oh yes, I hit one there. The first mine that I ever hit was with Bravo 1-2. I hit one that probably drove it about 8 foot off of the ground, because they said that it hit it right in the center of the tank, and I couldn't tell you when it first hit us whether it was RPG or what it was. And when we hit the ground, they said that it drove the hull underneath it up about 12 to 13 inches. And the batteries all set in the bottom of the hull, and it just disintegrated the batteries on the inside. My driver was bleeding at the ears. First time I'd ever seen anybody bleed at the ears, you know. And anyway, they got the tank back to the area. They surveyed the tank. It was probably the first one they surveyed out of Vietnam.
Yeah.
But anyway, after that, they took us over to sick bay, and the doctor checked us over there and said, can't do anything for you. He said, you just need a little rest. And 3 days later, we were back out in the same area, operating.
What were you, the tank commander?
Yeah, I was tank commander and section leader.
Okay.
And after that, they seen what it's like to hit a mine, and there wasn't anybody that wanted to get in the driver's seat because they knew what it was like down there,
Right.
you know. And anyway, we had an XO there. I don't remember his name right offhand, but he was going around paying everybody out in the field, and he was driving a tank, and it hit a mine.
Wow.
And anyway, he lost the back part of his heel. And anyway, he was pretty bitter about that, because the Marine Corps put him out, and then I went to drill instructor school, and anyway, he was there as a SEAL DI school. I can't remember his name right offhand,
Yeah.
but and then the company commander had told my platoon, which my platoon sergeant was John Marble, told us, said, I don't want y'all shooting no more 90mm ammunition, because said you shot more 90mm ammunition than the whole Marine Corps is allotted, you know, in the length of time that we were operating there.
Were you in a free fire zone, or did you?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And anyway, when we first went there, we were on the Da Nang airstrip there. We were security for the Da Nang airstrip, and if they hit one end of the airstrip, well, they moved the tanks down there to that area where it had been hit, or wherever they want us to move to.
Right.
But anyway, that's probably the biggest part of that time that I spent there in country there.
Was that the first tour?
That was the first tour,
Okay.
yeah.
And that was with Alpha Company?
It was Bravo Company.
Bravo Company.
Bravo Company 3rd Tanks.
Okay. And the second tour, then you were with Alpha Company?
Right. Second tour, I come over there, and anyway, what they did, they sent me out to the Cowdo Bridge, which is on Highway 1,
Right.
to see if they wanted to put me down there at that platoon. They wanted us to go out and check the platoons, because I was going to be the platoon sergeant of one of those platoons. They need one for Alpha 1st Platoon. They need one for Alpha Company 2nd Platoon. Anyway, went to the 1st Platoon and looked it over and came back. So the company commander said, well, I'm going to send you to the 1st Platoon, which was out on the Tuilong Bridge there.
Okay.
And,
About when was that?
beg your pardon?
About when was that?
Gosh, that was in January of 67. No, it had to be in December of 67 is when it was. Yeah. And anyway, the other staff sergeant had come in, which was Staff Sergeant Colazzo. They sent him to the other bridge. And the bridge where this tank crew was at was on the highway. They were providing security for the bridge on the river there, and they had to keep it open because the road went to Hill 36 and went to Hill 47, and gosh, I don't remember 47, I think it was, Hill 47. And anyway, after being out there for a while, there's something kind of fishy going on, funny going on out there, you know. And anyway, one night I went over to, had a couple of troops that were going to get in a fight. And it reminded me of MASH because the tank crew had their own private whore there. And I said, this is like MASH, you know. And so I went and asked a lieutenant, the platoon leader, you know, what's going on? Well, they've had it hard, you know, and it's kind of back here in the rear, you know, and I've been letting them just have it easy, you know. I said, we can't have this. So what I rounded up doing was taking 4 of them, and they were bringing booze in there at night, you know, and they were giving them money. And I didn't know this, you know. They didn't have no platoon sergeant, so they were just, I guess, running wild, you know, doing whatever they wanted to do. So I took and told them, you get all your whiskey and booze and everything, and put them in, they put them in croaker sacks. If anyone knows what a croaker sack is, like a potato sack. Mm-hmm. And I put them outside the fence, and we had lights there on the bridge, and we had kept a man with a rifle underneath the bridge, and they said, we can't go out there because the VC will kill us. I said, well, you got your choice. It's either out there and them kill you, or I'm gonna kill you, you know. And I want you out of here because I don't want you screwing these people up, you know.
Yeah.
And anyway, they stayed out there, but when it came daylight, they were gone.
Wow.
Gone from the area. And that was the same area there. Well, we had one of those towers on the other side of the river there, and that thing was up in the air probably about 60 foot or something like that. And nobody really didn't want to be up there because you could see the rockets when they were firing them out in the sand flats to the Da Nang airstrip. You'd see them flash, and then you could see them till it burned out, you know, going to the Da Nang airstrip. And anyway, it had a map up there where you could take plot on the map, and then we'd take it, call it in, and by the time it got to division headquarters, the rockets had already hit the Da Nang airstrip, you know. And anyway, they didn't want to be up there, I said, because whenever you fire them, it looks like they're coming right to that tower, you know, and that tower is it was on a hill and about 60 foot in the air. And anyway, we're taking also using that, you know, for those rockets. That was all probably working during '68 there, because that was when the Tet Offensive was during '68. Right. And anyway, there's a lot of stuff going on. The dogs were coming through the tripwires and setting off our flares out there, and we kept a man down under the bridge with a rifle, and they didn't want that bridge to be blowed because it was the only way to get down to Hill 36 or those other places where the Marines were at, you know, and the only way to supply them down there. Right. And anyway, they were giving us old grenades that, you know, they wanted to get rid of, and we were using them if we seen something floating down the river to take and throw them in the river, because the concussion from the grenade would take and bust the eardrums, you know, of the people down in the water. And it was an AR-15, and that thing had no lands and grooves. It had so many rounds fired through it. Wow. It was smooth bore, so probably as soon as the round come out of the end of the gun tube, it was probably the round was tumbling. Yeah.
Now, did you spend the second tour at the bridge there, or were you
No, they pulled us in because Captain Casey had the platoon, and he took 2 platoons to Way City during the Tet Offensive. He wanted to take all 3, but the battalion commander wouldn't let him, you know. Right. So anyway, they pulled us in, and this was after the division reactionary team had come down there, and they went into the village there, and what brought all that about was there were some popular forces in Vietnamese, like National Guard or whatever, come up to our position there, and they wanted to to go down. They said there's a lot of VC and NVA down in this village. So we got permission from Captain Casey, and he got permission from the battalion, so we sent 2 tanks down there. Well, anyway, one of them got 1-3, sent 1-2 and 1-3, and 1-3 got hit by 2 RPGs. It come back to the bridge there, and so I asked for a maintenance man to come out and check and see what's going to put it back in operation, you know. But anyway, we decided another tank to go down. I said, well, I'll go. So I took Alpha 1-5 and went down there. And anyway, 1-2 had called and said there was a major told him don't use no tank weapons in this area. And anyway, so I thought, well, I'll go across this rice paddy, and it was east of where we were at there at the bridge. And when I got down in there, the corpsman said, got a lot of dead and wounded here. And I said, only load up the wounded ones, and we'll get them out of here, you know. So when we were leaving out of there, they said that they're firing RPGs and whatever at us, you know. A B-40 and an RPG look the same unless it's got the chemical charge on it. Anyway, we got them back to the bridge, and they hauled the wounded ones off and unloaded the ones that were dead there, KIA, you know. Right. And went back down there and picked up the rest of them, brought them back. And when I came back that second time, they were loading up. It was a battalion reactionary team. They were loading up and getting out there. They're taking the wounded with them. And we had, I wrote an article in the sponsor box about the people that were left out there that were killed that night. And they say it's too dangerous out there. I said, we'll pick them up at first light. So they wanted them identified, and we identified them. And anyway, there's an article in the sponsor box about that incident. Yeah. And anyway, they had, I guess there's an infantry outfit that was there before, and they had well, we called them a shitter, out shitter, you know, and it had big maggots in it, and the corpsman come down there, he told me, you got to do something about that. I said, the only thing I know is burn the thing down, you know. So that's what we did. Well, the battalion that was there before was going to take it, you know, and they wanted to know what happened to it. And I told them that we'd burn it down because it's unsanitary, you know, out there. We made another one. They were going to do an investigation on that. But anyway, after that little skirmish there, they took and brought all of us into the battalion. I don't remember who took over that place down there. Some infantry took over that bridge down there. And then they sent the 2 platoons to Waste City, and Captain Casey was taking them, that one, and they kept me there at the battalion and said, you're gonna have 4 more tanks. So I had a platoon of tanks, plus I had the 2 battalion tanks, plus the 2 battalion tanks, the battalion commander and the XO's tank, plus the company commander from A Company tank and the XO, which gave me a total of 9 tanks. And as far as I know, that's the only time there's ever been 9 tanks in a platoon.
Yep.
And Colonel Hyatt had came in there after that and took over the battalion, and he said, you're going to be my reactionary platoon. Wherever it's a hot place for the division, said that's where you're going, you know, you're going there to try to straighten it out and get it cleaned up. And that was our job there, you know. And I stayed there, and then we went with a resupply thing there one time down to out in Alshaw Valley where Special Forces was at. And what they did, they took a company from different battalions. It was like a bastard outfit, and they had a colonel that was in charge of it. And we moved down a road there, headed out towards the Alshaw Valley. And it must not have been anything out there on that road since the French were there, because there was old vehicles and stuff, and where they'd hit mines and stuff, it was just left there. And anyway, the road was just wide enough. Thank you. Wide enough for a tank. You couldn't get two tanks, and anyway, I was the lead tank, and I always asked the point, why do y'all always put me into the lead tank? You know, you must be trying to get rid of me. And I said, no, you can handle any situation out there, you know. Anyway, we got down to a hill called Hill 52, and that was out edge of the Oshaw Valley. And anyway, there was a special forces guy there, and there was a couple of them there, and they had the mountain yards with them. Mm-hmm. And anyway, they mortared us all night long there. And anyway, the next morning we pushed off out there, going on out in the valley, and you could look out there where the special forces camp was, and it looked like a big graveyard, because all of us out there was planes and helicopters that had been shot down, you know. And a few years later, I run into this guy that was there with special forces on that Hill 52, and he said, I was so happy I wanted to kiss everybody, you know, that day, because I knew we were dead meat, because we had run out of sea ration, we were running out of ammunition and everything, and he said, we just didn't know how long it was going to be, you know, and we didn't know that y'all were coming out here to resupply, you know.
And were you assigned to an Army unit that was going out and work with them, or was it just?
No, I was with the Marine battalion that they'd put together, and they were resupplying this special forces camp out in Oshaw Valley there.
Yeah.
And anyway, there was special forces was there with the mountain yards on Hill 52, and I guess they were scattered all out around that Oshaw Valley. And those were probably real loyal people, because if a mortar round hit, they had a big pit over there, and a mortar round hit, if it didn't go off, the chief would tell them to go get it, and they were throwing them mortar rounds in a big pit that they had there on that Hill 52.
All the duds were going
in a pit, yeah.
Yeah.
So I said, God, I said, that's got to really be blind ledge, you know, if the mountain yards are doing that, you know.
Wow.
And then anyway, we started the next day and pushed down off of there, and there were a lot of Marines that were killed there that day, but they couldn't, it was in such a, like a valley, they couldn't get the helicopters up and get them out of there, you know, and the helicopters were going down, they were being shot down, they had so many wounded and dead. And anyway, we pushed on out and resupplied them, and after we resupplied them, then we came back to the dang area back there.
Wow.
And then we went down south where they were trying, on Highway 1, where they were trying to put a Bailey Bridge in over a bridge down at Hoy End, so they could travel up and down the highway there.
Now, Bailey Bridge is the one that the engineers have put in?
Yeah, the one that,
water.
yeah, the ones that the engineers put in.
Right.
And we were down there for 2 nights and 2 days, and got mortared down there too.
Did you have any trouble getting across that bridge?
We didn't go across the bridge.
Okay.
They stopped us, and we provided the security for them down there while they were putting that bridge up. And anyway, I guess they wanted to mortar the tanks, and anyway, just create as many casualties they could.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And anyway, we went down that Highway 1. It was like a super highway, but it was only wide enough for probably one tank, you know. But anyway, I got to see a little bit of I guess might try to say Vietnam, you know.
It sounded like you covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
When did you come home?
I come home in December of 78, or 68, I'm sorry, yeah.
And when did you get out of the Marine Corps?
Retired out of the Marine Corps in April of 78.
Okay, stayed another 10.
After 27 years.
Was there a chance you were going to be sent back for a third tour?
Yeah, there was a possibility of that, because I went to Okinawa and picked up a tank platoon of tanks, they just came back from Vietnam, and they told us that we had 2 weeks to get them ready, and they'd send me the people and I had to teach the people. We had to rebuild the tanks. They wanted them to look like new tanks in 48-83s.
Wow.
And anyway, we took and cannibalized off of tanks that had been brought from Vietnam that were brought into Okinawa and behind our tank park there. We dug up a track that had been buried down there, probably been buried down there for 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
Dug it up and put it on some of those tanks. And anyway, we took fenders, took all the parts that we could get off of those old tanks that they'd left there, unloaded and left there, and rebuilt those tanks. And I've got pictures there that I've been thinking about sending them, let them put them in the sponsoring box,
Yeah.
because Stars and Stripes did a story on it, but I don't know what's happened to the paper that Stars and Stripes did, but they look like brand new tanks because we painted them and everything and fixed them up.
Right. Now, were they going into country?
They were headed back to country,
Right.
but they didn't. They stopped us from going. We were getting ready to go back to Vietnam, and then they stopped us and put us on a ship, and we were out there off of the coast of Vietnam, but we never did land. Then they took us back to Okinawa.
Right.
So I guess that's when the drawdown was starting to take
Yeah,
effect.
that's about right.
Yeah. And anyway, they look like brand new 48A3s, they just come from the States,
Yeah.
And did a lot of welding, a lot of work, worked a lot of times at night down there by light, to get parts put on fenders and everything,
Yeah.
and replace gun tubes, cannons on them, what I'm
Right.
talking about. And those tanks were fired over on there in Okinawa, and we were told that was the last tanks that were fired on Okinawa. So
Wow.
I don't know whether that's true or not. But
Yeah. Anything else that you can remember that you'd like to share?
no, I can't think of anything else right offhand.
What was your rank when you retired?
When I retired, I was a Master Sergeant,
Yes, sir.
E8.
That's great.
And they tried to get me to go to Fort Knox, and I just got married. My wife was pregnant, and I hadn't been married too long. And anyway, I said, well, I really don't want to go down there, because I might have a divorce on my hands, Fort Knox is like.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, they said, well, if you don't go to Fort Knox, you're going back to Westpac.
Oh.
And I said, I just come back from Westpac here, about 2 years ago,
Yeah.
And anyway, I thought about that, and I said, well, maybe I ought to just retire, and give somebody else a chance. So
Yeah.
that's what I did, I
Yeah.
retired, and this is kind of strange. The guy that was working at the S1 in division had been my platoon leader, been my battalion commander, had been the S3 officer. And anyway, I talked to him and I told him I was getting ready to retire. He said, well, if you hand walk your papers up here, I said, I'll put them out the same day.
Wow.
A week later, I got okay that I could retire whenever I was ready.
Wow.
And after I retired, I found out that I was on the E9 list, so I said, well, too late for that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very select list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
What is it?
Master Gunner
Master
Sergeant.
Gunner Sergeant.
Yeah. But I think I done real well, though, because I got out and I'd went to work hauling gas, driving a gasoline transport. Went back to Texas here to visit my folks. And anyway, I ran into a guy, and so I started driving gasoline transport, delivering gas, And anyway, got into the Teamsters, and I was lucky enough that I put enough time in there that I could retire out there too, from the Teamsters, and worked with the freight lines, common carrier freight lines.
That's great. Dan, again, thank you very much. It was a great interview, and we've got a lot of good information, and for your service, and more importantly, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Where are you from in Texas?
Beg pardon?
Where are you from in Texas?
Well, I'm originally from Waco, but we live in Hewitt now. And, do you know where Hewitt?
I do.
Are you from Texas too, or are you from Texas? Are you from Texas too, or
No, but I lived up